The billionaire Sheikh stood motionless in the cavernous room, his piercing eyes as cold and sharp as the diamonds that glittered on his hand. The news had arrived like a lightning strike, a $300 million crisis threatening to shatter the empire he had built with ruthless precision. Around him, the opulence of his palace whispered of power untouchable. Yet beneath that glimmering surface, a storm was brewing. The nanny's startled gasp echoed faintly, breaking the heavy silence as she witnessed the unyielding man unravel the impossible in mere seconds. Sunlight filtered through alabaster arches, casting patterns of gold onto polished marble floors. The scent of oud mingled with the sweetness of jasmine, wrapping the palace in an intoxicating embrace. Velvet cushions, embroidered with threads of pure gold, lined every throne and divan. Outside, the endless desert horizon stretched in silent grandeur, a vast wilderness contrasting starkly with the extravagance within. Amid these treasures, the nanny moved quietly, her simple cotton dress a whisper against silks and satin. Her world had always been humble, far from the wealth that gleamed behind the palace walls. But today, that simplicity would become her anchor in tempestuous seas. She was Aya, the woman entrusted with the Sheikh's most cherished secret, the care of his young son. Her calm demeanor masked a heart pounding fiercely beneath. When the financial alarm sounded, she had been wiping a child's tear, unaware she was about to be thrust into the very eye of chaos. Her eyes darted nervously toward the Sheikh, sensing that beneath his stoic mask lay not just intellect, but a fragile ember of something buried deep. Aya's loyalty was fierce, but now challenged by an unknown threat no silk gown or gem-studded sword could quell. The Sheikh's mind was a fortress, calculating, detached, yet shadowed by a loneliness that no amount of gold could fill. He cradled the weight of the empire on his broad shoulders, as cold as the desert winds outside. Yet beneath his commanding presence lurked doubts and fears he refused to show. His gaze betrayed a rare flicker of uncertainty as he studied Aya, the one person in the palace whose simplicity unsettled his carefully constructed world. Could she be the key in untangling this financial nightmare? "The numbers don't lie," he said, voice low but steady, slicing through the thick tension with razor sharpness. $300 million vanish overnight. No mistakes, no mercy. His words hung in the air like an unspoken decree. Failure was not an option. The pressure mounted, crushing like the desert sun, and yet only the Sheikh was expected to find a path from ruin to rescue. Aya swallowed the rising panic, her fingers tightening around a silver tray she held. You can fix this," she whispered, awed yet fearful. "How?" Her question trembled between hope and disbelief. To her, he was invincible, an enigma draped in silk and secrets. But the crisis now made him human, vulnerable in his brilliance. He turned slowly, locking eyes with her. "Because I see what others overlook." His voice softened just enough to reveal a glimmer of trust. "And because sometimes the smallest pieces hold the greatest power." There was meaning beneath his words, a cryptic promise that puzzled Aya's mind, yet ignited her resolve. Before the moment could settle, a piercing alert shattered the fragile calm. An encrypted message blinked onto the Sheikh's crystal screen, a revelation so explosive it twisted the knife of suspense deeper. The missing billions were not lost by chance. A betrayal ran through the veins of his empire, poisoned from within. And Aya was no longer just a bystander. She held a secret that could unravel everything. Before the next secret of this vast empire unfolds, make sure you're part of our caravan of stories. So many destinies are yet to be decided, and I don't want you to miss a single moment. Drop a like if the heart of this billionaire sheikh has already intrigued you. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what twist do you think awaits us next? Your passion for these dramas keeps us going. Thank you for being with us. The encrypted message lingered on the Sheikh's crystal screen, its cold glow casting eerie reflections across his stern face. A quiet hum of tension filled the vast chamber, as if the very walls of the palace absorbed the weight of betrayal, whispered in cryptic codes. Aya's breath hitched, the silver tray trembling slightly in her hands. This was no ordinary crisis. It was a dagger thrust deep into the heart of an empire that seemed untouchable. And now, more than ever, the fragile thread holding them together threatened to snap. The Sheikh's eyes narrowed, cold and calculating once more. But beneath that icy exterior, an ember of fury burned fierce and relentless. "Someone close," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper, yet heavy enough to crush. Loyalty is a currency far rarer than gold. He stepped away from the screen, the weight of his every movement commanding the room as if it bore the entire desert's heat. Aya swallowed hard, steadying herself against the swell of dread rising within. She longed to speak, to offer comfort, to somehow bridge the widening. A slender thread of calm amidst the tempest and the chasm, she ventured softly, her voice a hesitant promise in the cavernous room. "Following what's ahead. Perhaps there are eyes and ears you've yet to consider." Her words stretched carefully between them, laden with more meaning than she dared express outright. He turned slowly, the faintest shadow of a smile flickering across his lips before dissolving like a mirage. "Aya," he said, voice lowered but edged with something dangerously intimate. "Your simplicity is a rare gift in this labyrinth of shadows. You see the world without filter, without mask." His gaze lingered on her as though tasting the depth beneath her quiet exterior. "It's why you must stay close, because the secrets we guard are not always weapons. They can be salvation." Outside, a breeze stirred the curtains, carrying the faint scent of frankincense and distant storms. The palace, with all its glittering grandeur, suddenly felt smaller, fragile, vulnerable as the man before her. Aya's heart clenched with an ache she neither expected nor fully understood. She had always been the caretaker of innocence, yet now she cradled something far more precarious, the unraveling pride of a man who ruled vast lands with a heart too guarded for any but the most fearless. Hours slipped by unnoticed. The endless swirl of data, whispered reports, and fractured alliances spun around them. Yet the Sheikh's mind bore down without pause. Slowly, Aya saw glimpses behind the iron curtain. A man wrestling his own shadows, each new piece of the puzzle like a knife, twisting deeper. Still, beneath the cold calculation, she sensed a fragile hope, perhaps born of desperation, that this storm could be weathered. Suddenly, a soft rustle echoed from the corridor. Aya stiffened, eyes flicking toward the great arched doorway. A figure emerged, tall and composed, yet carrying the unmistakable weight of urgency. The palace's chief strategist, Khalid, moved with the precision of a desert hawk stalking its prey. His dark eyes locked onto the Sheikh's, and for a moment, an unspoken war of wills passed between them. "Your Highness," Khalid said, voice steady but laced with tension. "There are rumors stirring among the councils, whispers of allegiances shifting. The betrayal runs deeper than we imagined." The Sheikh's jaw clenched, veins taut beneath his sun-kissed skin. "Then we must strike before the venom spreads further," he replied, the steel in his tone warning even the shadows to retreat. "Khalid, gather those you trust. Tonight the palace will hold no secrets." Aya watched the exchange with a tightening chest. The man she revered was no longer just a cold fortress, but a volcano ready to erupt, blazing fury under a veneer of control. Yet amid the swelling storm, her own courage blossomed, steeling her to the role fate now demanded. As the strategist turned to leave, the Sheikh's voice stopped him briefly. "Aya," he called, softer this time, as if the walls themselves had ears. "There is something in your past, something you have hidden with such care. If it surfaces now—" His words faded, heavy with implication. Aya met his gaze squarely. No longer the timid Nanny, but a woman carved by her own battles. "Whatever secrets you suspect," she whispered, "know that I owe this family my life, and I will not let the empire fall to shadows no matter what comes." Her vow hung between them like a silent flame, fierce and unwavering. The Sheikh nodded once, a rare flicker of vulnerability passing through his eyes. "Tomorrow, a banquet will bring together our allies and enemies alike. Masks will slip, loyalties revealed. We must be ready, not just to defend, but to unmask the traitor." Aya's mind raced, imagining the glittering hall filled with silk and steel, eyes darting with hidden motives beneath layers of perfume and jewels. The stakes were no longer distant headlines. They were the pulse of every breath she drew inside these walls. Night descended slowly. The desert moon poured silver light through the stained glass, casting fragmented rainbows over marble columns. The palace, alive with whispered plans and tightened alliances, held its breath. In a quiet chamber, the Sheikh stood by the window, gazing toward the horizon, where darkness met the endless sands. His reflection merged with the night as he whispered into the silence, "Trust is the rarest jewel, and I fear mine is already cracked." At that moment, a faint knock broke the stillness. Aya entered, carrying a folded parchment. An anonymous note slipped beneath her door earlier. With trembling hands, the Sheikh unfolded it. The words etched on gold-edged paper were simple, chilling. "Not all treasures shine with truth. Beware the one closest to your heart." The room seemed to freeze, breath stolen away by the weight of the warning. The Sheikh's eyes darkened, a tempest roaring behind them. The truth, once hidden, now clawed its way toward the surface, threatening to drown everything he had fought to build. And somewhere, deep within the opulent shadows, a traitor smiled. The silence shattered as the Sheikh's voice broke through the stillness, low and resolute. The war begins at dawn. The words on the golden-edged parchment burned into the Sheikh's mind like poison. Not all treasures shine with truth. Beware the one closest to your heart. The room, once filled with opulence and silent power, now felt suffocating, as if the very walls constricted around him, closing in with the weight of suspicion. Aya watched as the Sheikh Billionario's eyes darkened, the tempest behind them roaring louder with every passing heartbeat. His broad shoulders, usually the image of unwavering strength, seemed to sag for a fleeting second, betraying the burden he carried. The empire he had forged with iron will and relentless precision was no longer just threatened by external foes. It was bleeding from within. He folded the note carefully, a mask of steel falling once more across his features. "The traitor walks among us," he said, his voice low and icy, "and they venomously struck the very core of my trust." Aya's breath caught. For a heartbeat, they shared the silence, two souls bound by secrecy and looming peril. But where the Sheikh's fortress of pride seemed impenetrable, Aya's heart thrummed with a fierce resolve. "You are not alone in this," she whispered, stepping closer. The softness in her tone was an unexpected balm against the cold storm raging in the palace. "Let me help you uncover this shadow." For a moment, his eyes searched hers, a rare flicker of vulnerability meeting unyielding loyalty. Then, with a decisive nod, he turned to the crystal screen glowing faintly in the dim light. "Summon Khalid, and summon Rania," he ordered, his voice cracking the silence with unshakable authority. "Tomorrow's banquet will decide the fate not just of alliances, but of lives. We will unmask the serpent hiding in our midst." Aya's pulse quickened. Rania, the palace's mysterious advisor with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. The very mention of her name sent a chill crawling down Aya's spine as old suspicions whispered anew. Night deepened, cloaking the palace in shadows that seemed to stretch like fingers across the labyrinthine halls. Candles flickered in marble niches, casting dancing silhouettes against the textured walls embroidered with history and power. Aya slipped silently through the corridors, her footsteps muffled against the richly woven carpets. Every whispered voice, every hurried footstep she passed, felt laced with secrets sharper than the daggers rumored to lurk in forgotten chambers. The palace was alive, but with a treachery that threatened to unleash ruin. In the private chamber, where the Sheikh often secluded himself, Aya found him staring out through the lattice windows. The vast desert darkness beyond was endless, mirroring the uncertainty now clouding his warrior's heart. "You wear the weight of the world well," she murmured, breaking the silence gently. He turned, eyes reflecting the starlit night. "The burden grows heavier by the hour." "Aye, but even the strongest glass can crack," she said, voice steady. "And when it does, light can shine through." His gaze softened just a fraction, the jagged edges of his invincibility briefly smoothed by her quiet strength. "We will face the storm together," Aya added. "Because alone, even the mightiest empire falls." The Sheikh allowed a fleeting smile. It was fragile, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they shared, one forged not by blood, but by unspoken trust and shared peril. The next day dawned with an unforgiving blaze. The palace's grand hall was transformed into a glittering spectacle of silk and gold, where every eye was a calculating blade, and every smile a possible mask of deceit. Guests arrived, draped in jewels and secrets. The tension was palpable, thick like the scent of exotic perfumes mingling with the dry desert air that filtered faintly through open arches. Aya moved among the gathered guests, her humble attire a stark contrast to the lavish surroundings. Her eyes scanned faces, friends and foes blurring indistinguishably beneath layers of politeness and hidden agendas. From a distance, she caught Khalid's sharp gaze, a silent promise that the game was afoot, and that every word spoken in gilded whispers could either save or shatter them. The Sheikh Billionaire sat in his throne-like chair, a tower of calm and command. Yet even as he received dignitaries, his eyes betrayed the ceaseless calculation humming beneath his polished facade. Every glance, every slight gesture was a move in a deadly chess game. Suddenly, a hush fell over the hall. Rania stepped forward, her presence like a blade veiled in velvet. Her eyes scanned the crowd before resting on the Sheikh with an enigmatic smile. "Your Highness," she intoned smoothly, "I bring news from the Southern Council, rumors that question the loyalty of one closest to you." The room froze. Every breath became a whisper of suspicion. Aya felt her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. The Sheikh's gaze fixed on Rania, hard and unyielding. "Speak plainly." Rania's smile never faltered. "Whispers say that trust has been sold, threads of deceit woven through your very foundation. Some say a shadow moves in these halls, unseen but deadly." A murmur rippled across the stunned assembly. Eyes darted like sparks in a powder keg. Aya's eyes met the Sheikh's. In that silent exchange, thunder cracked, a storm of betrayal released from its cage. The Sheikh Billionaire rose, the full force of his presence commanding the hall's breathless attention. Enough. His voice was steel, wrapped in midnight silk. "The traitor reveals themselves at dawn. Until then, we watch, we wait, and we prepare to strike." As the last echoes of his declaration faded, a slender figure slipped silently into the shadows behind the crowd, watching, waiting, and weaving fate's cruel design. Outside, the desert wind howled like a warning, threading through ancient stones and restless dreams. And in the heart of the palace, trust had shattered irreparably. The war had truly begun. The palace walls seemed to close in tighter with every breath the Sheikh Billionaire took. The warning etched in golden letters haunted his mind like an echo from a distant storm, relentless and foreboding. "Not all treasures shine with truth. Beware the one closest to your heart." Those words twisted deep inside him, carving fissures where trust once stood unwavering. Aya watched him from the shadowed corner, her heart a fragile drumbeat beneath the silks and chandeliers. The man who ruled with sovereign might was now exposed, fragile beneath the weight of betrayal, his godlike facade cracked ever so slightly. For the first time, the empire's heart felt vulnerable, beating in fearful uncertainty. His jaw tightened, and his fingers clenched the ornate armrest of his throne, emerald rings flashing like warning lights. "The serpent has slithered into my garden," he said, voice a deadly whisper that carried the desert's austerity. "And it is no stranger." Aya took a cautious step forward, her presence a soothing balm amid the gathering tempest. "Trust is fragile, Your Highness," she murmured, "but it can be reforged from the fiercest flames. We must find the traitor before they strike." Again, he turned toward her, eyes narrowing like sharpened blades. For a moment, the icy fortress he wore melted into something unbearably human, a flicker of vulnerability that stretched across the stark pallor of his face. "You're wrong to stand so close," he said softly, voice a blend of warning and grudging reliance. "The closer they are, the more deadly their betrayal." Aya's breath caught. The accusation was invisible, but its weight was thunderous. Yet beneath it, she felt an unspoken plea, a desperate call for honesty in a world rife with illusions. Suddenly, the heavy oak doors creaked open, and Khalid stepped in. His silhouette was dark, his stride measured, carrying the palpable tension of urgent news. "Your Highness," Khalid intoned, sliding a data scroll into the Sheikh's hands. "The initial investigation reveals fractures deeper than anticipated. Some allies bend their loyalties with the shifting." Desert winds. The Sheikh Billionaire's eyes blazed with remembered battles and unspoken scars. "Loyalty is a luxury few can afford," he replied, voice low but crackling with command. "Prepare the guard. Tonight we hunt shadows cloaked in silk." Aya's gaze flicked to Khalid, who nodded imperceptibly. Every moment was a gambit, every alliance a knife's edge. The palace's glittering grand hall transformed in moments into a theater of shadows and whispered conspiracies. Lavish silks swirled beneath crystal chandeliers as courtiers wielded smiles that dripped with secret venom. Aya moved among them like a ghost, her simple dress and steady eyes unsettling amidst the perfumed pretense. Her steps paused near a murmuring cluster, where Rania stood, an enigma wrapped in elegance, her smile a razor hidden beneath velvet. Aya's fingers tingled, heart tightening. She knew the weight Rania carried silently. She sensed the layers of veiled threats. Curling behind those sharp, calculating eyes, the Sheikh Billionaire appeared at the heart of the hall, a statue of command carved from desert stone, yet alive with blazing intellect. His gaze cut through the crowd like a scimitar, dissecting lies from truths with brutal efficiency. A hush unfolded when Rania approached the dais. Her voice dripped with honey and steel. "Your Highness, the winds carry whispers that threaten the fragile peace we hold. Rumors claim that the poison runs from the one nearest to your guard." The chamber froze. Aya's pulse thundered in her ears, each heartbeat a drum signaling peril. The Sheikh's eyes seized Rania with an intensity that could smelt iron. "Speak plainly. The court dances with shadows," Rania replied, voice cool and deliberate. Beneath loyal smiles hide treacheries. The traitor wears the mask of trust, a presence ever near, yet unseen. Her smile did not waver, but Aya saw the edge beneath it, the flash of betrayal's blade. Murmurs rippled like restless desert sands, suspicion and fear intermingling in the heated air. Aya caught the Sheikh's gaze. It was a storm unleashed, fierce and wild. Amid the flicker of emotions, she saw something new, a flicker of guarded hope, like the first breath of dawn piercing night's chill. The Sheikh Billionaire rose, each movement a masterstroke of power and determination. Enough! His voice boomed, echoing across the chamber like thunder over dunes. The serpent shall be unmasked at dawn. Until then, every tongue and gaze is suspect. The crowd's absorption shattered, as a shadow slipped behind, unseen yet watching, lurking in the folds of silk and gold. The game was set. The battle for loyalty and survival had entered its deadliest phase. Later, when the halls of the palace grew still and the desert moon cast its argent glow, Aya found herself alone with the Sheikh in the quiet of the private chamber. His gaze was distant, lost amid the swirling sands beyond, but his voice was steady when he finally spoke. "Trust is a jewel too easily shattered," he confessed, "and mine lies fractured like cracked glass." Aya stepped closer. "Then let us forge it anew with fire and truth. We cannot protect this legacy by standing divided." His eyes searched hers, seeking solace or challenge, acceptance or defiance. "There is a past you carry," he said, voice barely a whisper but heavy with unsaid truths. "A secret that cloaks your loyalty in shadows. If revealed now, it could shatter everything." She did not flinch. "I will not allow darkness to claim what I protect. You have my word." A thin smile ghosted his lips, a fragile bridge over turbulent waters. As dawn crept over the horizon, the palace braced against the coming storm. Every whispered breath, every measured glance bore the weight of survival. And deep within the labyrinth of opulence and power, beneath layers of silk and deceit, the true traitor watched, poised to strike, unseen but unmistakably near. For the Sheikh Billionaire and Aya, the first move in a deadly game had been made, and the shadows held their breath, ready to reveal their darkest secret. The chill of dawn had barely begun to dissolve the desert's night, when the Sheikh Billionaire stirred from restless sleep. The golden-edged parchment's warning echoed relentlessly through his mind, as vivid as the balance sheets glowing coldly on his crystal screen. This was no ordinary battle of power or wealth. It was a war of souls, of trust severed and bonds betrayed. Aya entered the chamber quietly, the early light caressing her features as if blessing her courage. Her eyes met his immediately, an unspoken solidarity forming between them, forged in the fire of secrets and whispered threats. "You cannot carry this alone," she said, voice steady but soft as the breeze that whispered through the palace. "Every empire has cracks. It is what you do with them that defines its strength." He regarded her with a piercing gaze, shadows dancing behind the emerald fire in his eyes. "Trust," he murmured, "has become a luxury I cannot afford." Her fingers brushed lightly, against the smooth surface of the armrest as she approached. "Then let me be the shield for your vulnerabilities. I have lived in shadows much longer than these walls have stood." He tilted his head, curiosity flickering beneath his aloof surface. "You speak as one who knows the taste of betrayal." Her breath caught for only a moment before she replied, "Because I do. But betrayal loses its sting when confronted with unwavering loyalty." Their shared look held a tide of unspoken histories, a silent confession weaving between them, stronger than any vow. A delicate knock interrupted them. Khalid entered with calculated precision, his usual composed demeanor tinged with urgency. His eyes met the Sheikh's without hesitation, delivering the weight of unfolding disaster. "Your Highness," he began, sliding a thin data scroll across the gleaming tabletop. "There are fractures beyond the financial purge. Alliances once thought steadfast now waver. The shadow we hunt moves with deadly patience." The Sheikh Billionario's fingers clenched the scroll as if to crush the betrayal hidden in codes and whispers. "Prepare the palace. No corner shall escape scrutiny," he commanded, voice slicing through the growing tension like a desert wind through sand dunes. Aya's heart quickened, fingers tightening involuntarily. The room seemed to contract, the lavish tapestries and gold inlays losing their warmth under the weight of impending storm. "Tonight," the Sheikh continued, "we will watch the players. There will be masks, but some faces will slip. Every glance matters, every breath a potential lie." As Khalid bowed and retreated to marshal the forces of loyalty, Aya stepped closer, drawn by a force deeper than duty. "There's one person you trust implicitly," she reminded him, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's time to test that trust beyond the facades." His gaze locked onto hers, raw vulnerability and calculated fire warring behind the stoic mask. "Rania," he said, "the blood." Aya's pulse thundered against her ribs. The palace's mysterious advisor was a riddle wrapped in sophistication. To trust her or to fear her could mean salvation or utter ruin. Night unfurled its dark velvet across the desert when the grand hall shimmered with the arrival of guests, draped in silks, heavier than the secrets they carried. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured rainbows over marble floors, polished to mirror the swirling intrigues. Aya, in her simple dress, moved through the crowd like a calm whisper, eyes sharp, attuned to the subtle shifts of power. Every smile was a carefully placed dagger, every bow a calculated surrender or an invitation to treachery. Across the hall, the Sheikh Billionaire settled into his throne, a monolith of power dipped in shadows and intent. His gaze swept the room, unceasing, unyielding, probing beneath every seam of glitter to the truth stitched beneath. The murmurs swelled until they were silenced by the deliberate step of Rania, who floated forward like a shadow in silk, her smile a mask that did not quite veer into warmth. "Your Highness," she intoned, voice honeyed and sharp. "The winds of the Southern Council bring whispers. They speak of fracture, of trust broken at the foundation." The hall's breath held captive, every soul tethered to the weight of her words. The Sheikh's eyes narrowed. the hunter's gaze zeroing in on his prey. "Speak plainly, Rania." "Loyalty," she whispered, "has been betrayed not by strangers, but by one who walks nearest to you. A serpent cloaked in your own blood." A collective shiver rippled through the grand hall, eyes locked in silent accusation and defense. Aya felt her breath hitch, her hands clenched briefly into fists, the fire of resolve sparking bright and fierce. The Sheikh Billionaire rose, a tempest of authority crackling in his presence. "Enough!" his voice thundered, carried by the weight of a ruler, accustomed to command both respect and fear. "At dawn, the snare will be sprung, the traitor will be revealed, and justice, swift and merciless, will follow." The crowd erupted into murmurs, but faded when a shadow slipped behind their midst, unseen but palpably malevolent. The war of loyalty was no longer whispered. It had come alive, poised to explode. Later, in a quiet chamber veiled in the last traces of candlelight, Aya paused beside the Sheikh as he gazed out toward the desert horizon. "The realm of trust is perilous," he murmured, voice thick with the weight of centuries carried in his bloodline. "I fear the one I hold dearest may not be the sanctuary I believed them to." A fragile silence settled between them, a breath held. Aya met his gaze with unwavering conviction. "Secrets are burdens, but truth is a blade we wield together. No shadow, no matter how close, will outmatch our resolve." He turned to her, the faintest crack in his armor, a glimpse of a man not just shaped by power, but by the fragile hope held in defiant hearts. Before his lips parted, the silent echo of a distant whisper rippled through the palace. An unseen hand moving pieces in a game far larger than either of them, yet entwined with every heartbeat. Suddenly, a servant rushed in, breathless and trembling, clutching a folded letter sealed with a rare emblem. The Sheikh snatched the parchment, breaking the seal with fingers that trembled only slightly. Unfolding it, his eyes widened in shock, words scrawled with icy cruelty. "Betrayal wears the face of love. Tonight, the walls will hear secrets that shatter crowns." A cold wind swept through the chamber as the Sheikh Billionaire's jaw tightened, every muscle coiled and ready. Aya's hand found his, a tremor of shared fate passing between them. The empire stood on the brink, and somewhere deep within the palace, beneath silks and whispered lies, the traitor's smile grew wider, tasting victory before the dawn. The morning light seeped softly through the stained glass, casting slivers of color onto the marble floor where the Sheikh Billionaire stood motionless. His eyes, sharp and unreadable, seemed fixed beyond the horizon, beyond even the walls of his fortress of silk and gold. The weight of the golden-edged letter burned beneath his skin, a poison that seeped into every breath. "Where's the face of love?" the words had whispered in cold ink. Tonight, the peril would unfold. Aya's steps were quiet, but to the Sheikh, her presence was a lifeline amid the encroaching tempest. She crossed the room, the simple fabric of her dress contrasting starkly with the majestic opulence surrounding them. The scent of frankincense hung in the air like a whispered prayer, mingling with the tense silence. "You carry a storm within you," she said softly, her voice threading through the shadows. "Let me stand beside you in its eye." He turned then, emerald eyes flashing with a fury held tightly in check. "The enemy is unseen," he replied, voice low but resonant, "striking from within, and yet not all wounds bleed openly." His gaze lingered on her, searching for something beyond loyalty, a spark of understanding, or perhaps the fragile promise of alliance forged in secrets. Aya met his look without flinching. "Secrets have shadowed, lives longer than this palace has stood. I will not let them shred what you've built." For a moment, the room seemed to contract, as if the walls themselves leaned in, eager to witness this unspoken pact. The Sheikh, usually impermeable, revealed a faint crease of weariness, as though the empire weighed heavy against a man who once believed himself invincible. The grand hall's distant hum called them back to the present. The day was swallowing its moments, and the banquet's promises loomed large, an arena where masks would slip and whispers could turn to daggers. Aya's heart quickened. Amid the simmering tensions and perfumed elegance, she felt the invisible threads weaving destinies with every glance. She caught the subtle nod from Khalid. Silent signals passed in shadows, confirming the hunt to begin. Later, beneath crystal chandeliers, casting fractured rainbows over polished marble, the palace transformed into a theater of treachery. The gathered nobles whispered behind fans gilded with desert roses. Smiles were sharpened, and laughter carried the weight of unspoken threats. Sheikh Billionaire took his place atop the throne, a monolith carved from desert stone and tempered steel. His eyes, burning with an unyielding fire, followed every movement, decoding falsehoods beneath the silk and velvet. Rania glided forward, her presence as sleek as midnight, her smile a silken trap. Every step echoed with subtle menace, a queen in this court of shadows. "Your Highness," she began, voice honeyed, "there are whispers from the Southern Council. Doubts breed poison among those closest to you." The air thickened. Every breath slowed, as eyes darted like desert foxes, tracking unseen threats. Aya's chest tightened, her pulse echoing betrayal's echo. Bashik's gaze sharpened. "Steel, the serpent, moves within your walls, by blood and by whisper, by trust misplaced." A wave of silence crashed over the hall, suspending heartbeats. The only sound was the cool draw of breath and the distant patter of silk on marble. Their eyes met, Sheikh's fierce, Aya's resolute. In that instant, an unspoken vow hardened between them. The war for their souls had begun. He rose, a figure both regal and fierce, his voice rolling like thunder over the sands. "Enough. At dawn, the betrayer will be revealed. Until that hour, no secrets remain safe." The crowd's tension rippled into restless murmurs as shadows rippled behind silken curtains. A fleeting silhouette slipped between pillars, watching, patient, deadly. Night deepened across the desert, a cloak of velvet and hidden threats. In the quiet chamber where trust trembled, the Sheikh stood beside Aya, eyes lost beyond the palace to infinite darkness. "The jewel of trust fractures," he confessed, voice heavy with the burden of centuries. "The one I hold close might be the dagger in my side." Aya's hand found his, a steady anchor. "Truth is a blade we wield together." No darkness, no matter how near, can eclipse what we defend. He turned, the faintest crack in the armor of a man, forged by power yet softened by hope. The fragile bond stretched taut between them, a delicate bridge over devastating divides. The whisper of footsteps then broke the silence. A servant appeared, breathless, clutching a sealed scroll. The Sheikh broke the wax. His fingers barely trembled. The words stared back. Betrayal wears the face of love. Tonight, the walls will hear secrets that shatter crowns. The chill in the room deepened, sucking warmth from marble and blood alike. A storm of thoughts thundered behind his eyes. The palace, his legacy, was a fragile sanctuary now breached. Silent, Aya tightened her grip, sharing a pact beyond words. Together, they faced the fraying threads of their world. And in the hush just beyond sight, the traitor's lips curved into a victorious smile, tasting the collapse before its dawn. Suddenly, the palace doors crashed open. Figures, cloaked in midnight intent, surged forward. Shadows slipping through golden halls. Drawing closer to the heart of the storm, the Sheikh Bilionaire's voice rang out. A blade swung in the darkness. Hold your ground. The war begins now. And as the desert wind howled against ancient stones, beneath the glittering chandeliers and the trembling stars, the first move of a deadly game slammed into motion. With trust shattered and betrayal disguised as love, the true nightmare was only beginning. The night pressed heavily against the palace walls as the Sheikh Billionaire stood motionless in the dimly lit chamber. His gaze, sharp and unyielding, pierced the endless darkness beyond the stained glass. The warning inked upon the golden-edged parchment burned relentlessly in his mind. Betrayal wears the face of love. Tonight, the walls will hear secrets that shatter crowns. The words echoed like a cruel prophecy, unraveling the fortress of certainty he had long depended on. Aya's footsteps were a soft echo in the silence as she approached, her presence a fragile thread of calm amid the storm. The scent of frankincense lingered, mingling with the subtle aroma of jasmine that lingered from earlier hours. Her eyes locked with his, a silent understanding passing between them. Two warriors poised at the edge of unseen battlefields. You carry a tempest within, Your Highness. Her voice was barely a whisper, yet it cut through the tension like a whispered prayer. Let me be your steadfast shield. The Sheikh turned slowly, emerald fires narrowing as they steadied against the surge of fury beneath his measured exterior. The enemy moves unseen. Beneath my roof in the heart of my kingdom, he murmured, voice low but deadly certain. Not all wounds bleed visibly. Aya's gaze held his without wavering. Secrets have shadowed us longer than these walls have stood, but I will not let them tear apart what you have built with blood and sacrifice. A faint crease of weariness broke across his chiseled face, a rare fracture in his ironclad demeanor. Around them, the marble pillars seemed to lean closer, as if the very palace had drawn breath, waiting. The distant murmur of the grand hall tugged them back toward the gathering storm. The banquet lay ahead, a dizzying dance where masks would shatter and silence would speak louder than conviction. Aya's heart beat faster. Beneath the layers of silk and gold, every glance was a dagger, every smile concealing blades honed by intrigue. Khalid's subtle nod from across the hall sealed their unspoken pact. The hunt had begun. Under the crystal chandeliers fracturing light into shards across polished marble, the palace transformed into a stage of whispered conspiracies. The nobles, draped in silks heavier with secrets than threads, whispered behind embroidered fans. Laughter, rich and sharp, rolled in waves laden with animosity masked as politeness. At the center, the Sheikh Billionaire appeared, regal, immovable like carved desert stone, tempered steel beneath his silk robes. His eyes swept the crowd, unforgiving, sifting truth from deception with every lingering gaze. When Rania finally stepped forward, it was as though shadows themselves twisted under her silken steps. Her smile, an exquisite veil of warmth, hid sharper edges than any blade carried in the desert sands. "Your Highness," her voice flowed like honey laced with poison. From the Southern Council, whispers grow louder. Doubts have sown seeds poisoning the roots of loyalty. The hall stilled, as if the air itself froze, breaths caught in throats. Eyes flickered like desert creatures, hunting in twilight, searching for the unseen. The Sheikh Billionaire's gaze hardened, hunting instinct sharpening. "Speak plainly." Rania's smile remained perfect, a cruel crescent moon. "Loyalty has been bartered away not by strangers beyond these walls, but by a serpent moving closest to your heart." The accusation hung, a venomous wind that chilled even the bravest. Murmurs flickered like restless desert sands. Suspicion, fear, intertwining in thick currents. Aya's breath hitched, her hands clenched into tight fists, the ember of fierce resolve igniting within her chest. Their eyes met, his fierce as the desert sun, hers steady as the night stars. Between them, a silent vow hardened, a promise carved from shared danger and unwavering loyalty. Rising as a tempest born of both fury and command, the Sheikh Billionaire's voice thundered through the chamber. "Enough! At dawn, the betrayer shall be unmasked. Until then, all whispers must be hunted, all masks pierced." The crowd stirred, tension rippling like waves on a restless sea. Behind the silken curtains, a shadow slipped, silent, patient, deadly, already weaving the next thread in this deadly tapestry. The palace slowly darkened beneath the desert's velvet cloak. In a secluded chamber, the Sheikh stood beside Aya, eyes lost upon the shifting sands beyond the latticed window. "Trust is a jewel easily shattered," he confessed, voice thick with the weight of countless battles. "The one I hold closest may wield the dagger." Aya's hand reached for his, steadying them both amid the encroaching storm. "Truth is a blade we wield together. No darkness, no matter how near, will claim what we defend." He turned, the faintest crack in his armor breaking the silhouette of invincibility. A fragile bond stretched tight, a delicate bridge spanning hope and despair. Steps echoed softly, breaking the fragile silence. A servant entered, breathless, clutching a sealed scroll. The Sheikh's fingers broke the wax with calm vigilance. The letter's cruel script seared into the quiet. "Betrayal wears the face of love. Tonight, the walls will hear secrets that shatter crowns. But chill invaded the chamber. Warmth leached slowly from the ornate marble and rich tapestries, a silent winter settling over empire and heart alike. Thoughts thundered behind his eyes, each pulse echoing the growing fractures beneath all he had built. Aya's grip tightened, a shared resolve binding them beyond words. Side by side, they faced the fraying threads of their world, defiant beneath the looming tempest. Beyond sight, hidden behind veils of silk and shadows of gold, a smile curved sharp and triumphant. The traitor, tasting victory before the dawn, whispered promises drenched in poison. Suddenly, the grand palace doors exploded inward. Figures cloaked in darkness surged forward, shadows twisting through golden halls, converging relentlessly on the heart of the storm. The Sheikh Billionaire's voice rang out, a blade cutting the night. "Hold fast! The war begins now!" And beneath the desert's ancient stones, beneath glittering chandeliers and trembling stars, the first decisive move crashed into motion. A deadly game no soul would escape. Trust shattered. Betrayal unveiled. The true nightmare was only just beginning. The morning air felt heavier than usual, as if the very walls of the palace held their breath in anticipation of the storm that was about to break. The grand hall, flawless in its marble and gold, now seemed a cage for whispered conspiracies and watchful eyes. The Sheikh Billionaire stood near the towering window, his silhouette cast long and sharp against the awakening desert outside. His eyes, usually so commanding and untouchable, flickered with a rare mixture of turmoil and calculation. Aya approached silently, the soft rustle of her simple dress like a whispered prayer amid the opulence. Her heart pounded, not just for the fate of the empire, but for the fragile thread of trust woven between them. She could sense the invisible weight settling between their shared gazes. The note, the betrayal, the shadows creeping. Closer, it was all a tempest verifying the cracks beneath the glittering surface. "You wear the burden as though it were carved into your very soul," Aya murmured, voice steady but soaked in empathy. He exhaled slowly, the desert sun casting cold gleams off the emerald rings that adorned his hands. "Trust," he said, voice low but edged with deathless resolve, "is a rarity in this palace, a jewel easily shattered by the closest betrayal. And now, it feels like a blade pressed against my heart." Her eyes searched his, sensing the fractured man beneath the mantle of power. "Then let us become the smiths of that broken jewel. Together, we will forge it anew. No darkness, no venom will unseat what stands between you and the loyalty you deserve." A ghost of a smile flickered on his lips, a rare crack in the armor. "Aya, you speak of loyalty without the stains of deception, but sometimes the ones closest bear the sharpest fangs." Before she could respond, the heavy oak doors creaked, admitting Khalid's steady presence. His expression remained unreadable as he delivered the latest intelligence, a powder keg of fractured alliances and shifting loyalties. Every whisper could be a knife, every nod a signal for treachery. "The Southern Council fractures further, Your Highness. They whisper of factions, eager to see your throne crumble," Khalid reported, his voice barely concealing the weight of urgency. The Sheikh's gaze sharpened with lethal precision. Then we must be the ghosts haunting their ambitions. Tonight, the palace becomes a battleground of shadows and secrets. Aya swallowed the knot of fear tightening in her chest, but steadied herself with the same fierce determination that had carried her into the heart of this empire's storm. As night draped its velvet cloak over the desert, the palace's grand hall transformed into a theater of opulence and veiled threats. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured rainbows onto polished marble, while whispers spun webs of suspicion and half-truths. The nobles, adorned in silks heavier than their smiles, mingled beneath the glittering lights. Every glance was a gamble, every smile a possible snare. Aya moved quietly through the labyrinth of whispered plots, inconspicuous in her plain dress amid the sea of brocades and jewels. Her eyes met the sharp glances of allies and foes alike, the weight of unspoken warnings pressing heavily. She caught Khalid's subtle nod, a silent signal confirming their mutual vigilance. At the center, the Sheikh Billionaire sat, a living monument to power and unyielding will. His emerald eyes scoured the room, slicing through pretense and luxury to expose the naked truths beneath. Then, from the shadows, stepping gracefully into the glow, came Rania, the palace's enigmatic advisor. Her presence was like a dark silk veil, elegant, impenetrable, and hiding blades beneath layers of honeyed diplomacy. Her smile, as ever, was a carefully crafted mask, almost warm, yet carrying an edge that cut deeper than any desert blade. "Your Highness," she began, voice smooth as perfumed night air. The Southern Council's whispers grow louder. "Trust within this court," phrase faster than the finest silk kept behind these walls. A hush fell over the hall. Breaths caught like desert winds before sandstorms. Eyes flicked nervously, searching the room for the invisible serpent among them. The Sheikh's gaze hardened. "Speak plainly, Rania. I require no riddles tonight." Her smile did not waver. "The poison flows not from distant enemies, but from within the circle you guard most fiercely, a serpent cloaked in blood and deceit." The accusation hung heavy as the desert heat, igniting sparks of suspicion and silent dread. The murmurs swirled louder, like restless sandstorms gathering strength. Aya's breath hitched, her hands clenched tightly, resolve igniting in the furnace of betrayal. In that charged silence, eyes met, his fierce, trembling between wrath and despair, hers steady, a pillar of defiant strength. The Sheikh rose, a tempest incarnate, his voice reverberating like thunder over endless dunes. "Enough. At dawn, the traitor shall be uncovered. Until then, every glance, every word is a weapon. We watch, we wait, and we strike." A ripple passed through the crowd, similar to the shifting sands before a storm, as shadowed figures melted between pillars and curtains, unseen but merciless. Later, away from prying eyes and fleeting alliances, Aya found the Sheikh gazing out toward the horizon, where darkness met the endless sands. room was drenched in the silver luminescence of the moon, the silence almost palpable. "Trust is the rarest jewel," he confessed, voice rough with the weight of ancient battles. "And mine is fractured. The one I held closest may yet prove the sharpest dagger." Aya stepped forward, placing her hand over his, a quiet promise carved from the fire of shared adversity. "Then we will sharpen our swords together. No shadow, no betrayal, no poison will claim what is ours to protect." He turned, vulnerability breaking through the impenetrable fortress of his bearing, revealing a man both infinitely strong and painfully human. A sudden, soft knock shattered the fragile stillness. A servant entered, breathless, bearing a sealed scroll edged in gold. The Sheikh broke the wax with deliberate calm, but his eyes betrayed the shock within as he read the chilling words etched inside. "Betrayal. Where's the face of love? Tonight the walls will hear secrets that shatter crowns." A deadly quiet fell over the chamber. The opulence surrounding them seemed to drain away, leaving only raw fear and smoldering determination. Aya's grip tightened. Together, they stood on the precipice of ruin or redemption. Outside, behind silks and whispers, the traitor's smile blossomed, a dark flower ready to bloom at the heart of their empire. And as the night deepened, the palace doors exploded open. Cloaked figures surged like shadows unleashed, converging upon the heart of the storm. The Sheikh Bilionaire's voice cut through the chaos, commanding, resolute. "Hold your ground. The war for the Empire's soul begins now." Beneath the cold moonlight, with trust shattered and treachery unveiled, the game had changed forever. The true nightmare was only just awakening. The first light of dawn spilled gently over the emirate, casting a golden hue that softened the sharp edges of the palace. The vast desert beyond shimmered in quiet reverence, unaware of the storm that had just passed, and the fragile peace now settling in its wake. Inside the grand hall, the air carried a calm it had not known for days. The guests from the previous night's turmoil had departed, leaving behind whispered echoes and lessons etched deeply in memory. The Sheikh Billionaire stood by a sunlit window, his figure tall and resolute, but now softened by the subtle curves of relief and hope. Aya approached, her steps as light as desert breeze, her eyes reflecting the calm that had returned to the palace. The journey they had endured together, the shadows, betrayals, and near ruin, had unraveled and woven anew the fabric of their bond. No longer just caretaker and master, they were partners. United by trust forged in fire. He turned to her, emerald eyes no longer sharp with suspicion, but gleaming with the quiet light of understanding and gratitude. "The serpent has been uncovered," he said, voice steady, but carrying the weight lifted from his shoulders. "Justice has found its course, and the Empire breathes free from poison." Aya's lips curved into a gentle smile, her heart swelling with a mixture of pride and tenderness. "The truth always finds its way," she said softly, "and those who stand for it endure." The palace gardens bloomed in the morning sun, delicate flowers unfolding among fountains that sang with the clarity of fresh beginnings. The scent of jasmine and frankincense mingled with the crisp desert air, a silent ode to renewal. Outside, servants and guards moved with a purposeful lightness, born from the restored harmony. Together, they walked toward the gardens, their silhouettes weaving stories of healing past the opulence that once felt like a gilded cage. The trials they had faced had stripped away the layers of pretense, revealing a connection that no wealth or power could contain. The Sheikh reached out, his hand finding Aya's in a grip both tender and resolute, the language of souls speaking louder than words. "You stood beside me at the edge of darkness," he murmured, "and showed me the strength in vulnerability." Her gaze met his, steady and unyielding. "And you taught me that even empires need hearts to hold them upright." Between them, the world seemed to pause, a sacred moment crystallized in the gentle warmth of morning light. The vast desert beyond held no power over the sanctuary they had created together. A fortress not of stone, but of shared truth and the blossoming of love. News had spread quietly, no longer of treachery or whispered dangers, but of the Sheikh Billionario's renewed reign, tempered by wisdom and compassion. The court had embraced the change, their whispers turning into hopeful songs for the future. In the great hall once again, the Sheikh convened with trusted allies, not in shadowed suspicion, but in transparent unity. Aya's presence was the steady flame that guided them all, the embodiment of loyalty that transcended titles and bloodlines. The child she cared for, now playing in the sun-dappled courtyard, laughed freely, an innocent testament to the victory not only of power, but of family restored. The echoes of his joy filled the palace, each sound a healing balm on the scars of the past. Under the watchful sky, as the sun climbed higher, the Sheikh Billionario and Aya embraced their future, a future where love was both shield and sword, where trust was rebuilt, not on fragile promises, but on actions wrought in courage and truth. The palace doors stood wide open, welcoming the light, the wind carrying with it the whispers of peace and hope. No longer haunted by fear, the emirate breathed anew, stronger, brighter, and united. Hand in hand, they stepped forward, two souls bound not by inheritance or wealth, but by the unbreakable bond of hearts that conquered the darkest betrayals. Together, they forged a legacy not of shadows, but of brilliance, love, and unshakable trust. The desert beyond gleamed under the sun's embrace, a vast canvas of endless possibilities. And at its heart, the Sheikh Billionario and Aya stood as living proof that even amidst the highest towers of gold, the truest power lies in the courage to forgive, to heal, and to love without reservation, forever.